Okay, it's been a minute. Back on it. My name is VJ, the brother from the ancient mother. You are watching the Headspace, Africa's most poignant culture podcast. And it feels good to do another review, the first review of 2024, that case?
Yeah, album that's dropped in 2024.
Right?
Yeah.
Of an album. Okay, right. So now, the artist in particular um, requires an in-depth introduction. Pretty Ugly surfaced on the South African music scene, appearing to be a colorful, bougie-esque playboy swag rapper. In an era where Kieran Forbes still had his grip tight in the South African rap scene, Ricky Rick was dazzling with the glitz and glamour of being a fashionista while shifting the culture when it came to the belief in South African songwriting and reinventing what a pop hit could be in these new times. When Casper Vest was basically becoming the modern day rap conglomerate of um, publicity oriented moves, when Questa was sticking to the grounding of his humility brand and the aesthetic of the new Kasi reinvention of what rap could be, Pretty Ugly was right there in that configuration, trying to figure out how to stand out, which is something that a lot of artists face when they're in the machine, but they have to compete with the biggest facets of it. Pretty Ugly's career might have been tainted by the fact that he really surfaced in an era with a lot of singular talent and a lot of great generational South African talent. And as a result, it could have been so easy for him to flounder into the background of musical history and become, another Draenkop or something like that. But he persisted through following his own independent lane, through that cringe era with Ambitious Records, um, to eventually in the Stay Low group finding a force which seems to understand the vision that he had all along. And I think the vision that he had all along was to add a level of flair and introspective intelligence to what a lot of people brand Kasi rap. I don't even like that term, but I'm gonna use it. The idea of Kasi rap is based on the notion of rapping in the styles and the textures that directly allude and are extracted from South African township culture. Um, Brave move in a time where South African trap chose to mimic an Americanized pattern of putting itself out, even neglecting cultural aspects of South African slang, code switching, as it were, in an American twang to a South African audience. But not Pretty Ugly. His three-part series, which began with Soil, then Mud, to the now sensational. And when I say sensational, I say just in the uproar that it created, Dust. Let's call this the Earth series. Because I think through everything Pretty Ugly was pursuing in hopes of elevating and becoming another luminary in the galaxy of South African superstars, he realized the irony that you only become a star when you understand where you're grounded. Hence the Earth series, starting off understanding what kind of soil he was in, how he could cultivate himself in that environment, to understanding that sometimes the pressures of South African culture will create conditions which make it easy to navigate. Hence, being in a muddy place had to follow, to eventually understanding that the end and the conclusive legacy of an artist is something that breaks down and trickles far beyond the artists themselves. And I think this is conceptually what Dust is all about. Dust is the last installment of the Earth series and pretty much Pretty Ugly's last album. So he claims. But one thing I know about rappers is when they tell you they're going to quit, they're not going to quit. But the music. First and foremost, this project opens up on a note that continues off. Yeah, we're a little bit sick. From
5 minutes later.
now in the headspace, we talk a lot about authenticity, and if you haven't gotten the memo, authenticity is an artist understanding how to code themselves from the immediate cultural aspects of their surrounding, thus being able to have the cultural leverage that allows them to speak for the people they come from, and as a result become a conduit for those experiences to have a platform to be told through songwriting and through the packaging of marketable imagery. Pretty Ugly has always been an artist who's worn his hood on his sleeve, who's unapologetically been Gasi, while at the very same time still pushing that aspirational pulse. And I think he's found a way to distill his best traits into fashionable form. I mean, he's one of those artists who still exist in the South African celebrity scene because he kind of does have that thing. I mean, looks aside, Pretty Ugly has a quality about him that oozes with a lot of sincerity. And I think that the music previous to the Earth series just couldn't hit that mark, fundamentally because he hadn't found his rapping voice. The stuff he did with Weechi was phenomenally industrial. It was a good replication of what was hot, but it was still caged within the purview of mimicry and still appealing to an inclination that wasn't directly him. Even rapping in a way which didn't carry a lot of quote-unquote humanness. And now, in instances that are explicitly displayed, like on the track Falling, where the insistence to live is contrasted with this defying, knocking drums, and it just makes for a beautiful testimony to the human spirit. Tracks like Njaka, where the flair is injected into a mash beats, beat, which pretty much sounds like another rendition of Never Ride, which is why I'm pretty mad at that song. It's like they were trying to relive that moment, plus the Maglera part. But in essence, this project carries a bravado that is backed by skill and imagination. A lot of rappers are good at talking shit, but most of it is about nothing at all other than the orbit of their own self-importance or imagined self-importance, because a lot of these things aren't even that important because they haven't done anything worth raving about. But Pretty Ugly's bravado is carried through by the fact that he's tried with himself and his audience to evolve in a cutthroat industry to still emerge with a sense of integrity. A married man losing a boxing match in the face of the whole world, basically to go through all the humiliations that a person could ever go through as a public figure and still be able to emerge relatively likable, simply because something about them just says that they are part of a movement that forms a pact with the country to try and transform it in some way, even if that way is becoming a mouthpiece for the experiences of the people on a genuine level. And I think that this project, even with its star-studded lineup of rappers like Tyson Sabateli, Ginger Trill, of course, I keep forgetting
Tato Soul.
Tato Soul, yes.
Yeah.
My goodness, how could I forget Tato Soul?
Mecca,
Zulu Mecca, please. On and on and on. It's lyricists who are becoming the new voices of the South African youth. And I think Pretty Ugly curates this project in a way that positions it as the final epoch of a storytelling journey. And this particular storyteller having found his voice ultimately. The production is two parts. It starts off in a bouncy, grimy, grungy feel that again is a beautiful continuation of what we've known Priddy Ugly for since the Weechi era. I mean, those floaty bangers which carry that level of township appeal, whilst at the very same time having the clean horns and orchestra ready presence of a club atmosphere. It shifts by the time we get to No Plans, and the energy becomes a little sultry, a little sweet, a little sensitive. So does the writing. Priddy Ugly in this project spaces his verses in a way that is witty, in a way that considers the emotional reflection of what he's trying to convey, in a way that is not trying to be too technically verbose, but is just trying to simply tell a story with skill. And he does it perfectly. Matter of fact, I think out of all the Earth trilogy raps, this by far for me has the most impressive rapping. He's found his space, his energy, his prowess, his mold, his moment. The man is in his element. And it shows. When you look at tracks like Marshall that K. Keed steals, you are able to realize the diversity of Priddy Ugly as an artist as well. How he's able to navigate from the club-esque scene back into a place which is a little bit more personal, but still do that simultaneously. I mean, even the bangers have a conscientious tone about them. There is really a lot of message, from everything that's befallen the country with the artists that have fallen, to the political state, to just the emotional angst of the youth. Priddy Ugly is delivering a sermon on the condition of South Africa while still making it sound like a beautiful night out to the club. He's able to weave together these experiences in a way that really positions this album as one of those projects that might just have the extra edge by its ability to tell the story as the people live it and experience it. This is the recipe that a lot of artists look for when they're really trying to make the kind of songs that linger beyond the moment of ecstasy. And I think here are songs which lyrically and in terms of the composition make sense. The problem is they're released in an era where they're not sonically original. This project is very safe in terms of the production. It doesn't carry a lot of risque, avant-garde moves. No new tricks are tried. Mash Beats really recycles a whole lot of his formulas. The other producers in this project as well kind of bring a balance between the nostalgia of the Priddy Ugly we've come to know, matched with the need to feel contemporary in the moment. Therefore, I think the backlog of this project is that it has the audacity to speak to the times, but it doesn't have the audacity to try and speak towards the possible future. And as a result, it doesn't have the lingering air of a classic. It doesn't have the feel of a project which will outgrow its time because it feels too caged in its time. So as a result, I think the production will not feel its way out of 2026, because the sound scope of rap right now, if anybody is really listening in every aspect, is going to more towards a techno-industrial direction, and I feel we are witnessing a trap suspension. The sound that has oozed throughout the era is still pretty much what determines the code, but we really are entering into a new age, and I don't think this project is even in any detail aware or trying to pay homage to that. So for me, all in all, if this is Priddy Ugly's last project, it definitely is a worthwhile ending to an artist who has given us his heart, who has allowed himself to fail and fumble in front of us, who has allowed himself to rise in front of us and show us that, you know, in the words of Booga Two Shoes, you can't keep a good man down. What will this good man do next? it is interesting. But the one thing that he has done through this project is give us a window into who he really is. And through every review done on the Headspace, that is something that a lot of artists don't do. They don't really insert themselves into the music. They create caricatures that they feel might appeal to the people, that act as some kind of vacillating vehicle between them and the audience. But very rarely do we get artists who have the ability to open themselves up and make their vulnerability sound like something we want to become a part of. Ultimately, for me, the rating for this definitely goes beyond the mid mark. It sits comfortably in the 8 out of 10 pocket. It has all the oomph, the finesse, the energy of a good project. It has all the livelihood of something you will occasionally go back to when you want to honor and remember Priddy Ugly as an artist, but it doesn't have the groundbreaking force of a project which will determine how the industry itself looks at rap music and how every other artist chooses to approach the art and the sound. All in all, Priddy Ugly has made his mark, and he might not be in the quote-unquote Mount Rushmore of South African rap, but he's definitely the pebble that nobody foresaw could grow into a rock that could create such a powerful seismic effect. He's definitely in the annals of South African rap as an artist who had the bravery to be part of a movement which ushered back the importance to not be lyrical for lyrical's sake, but to allow the lyrics to ride on songs that could actually mean something. Keep watching the Headspace, keep subscribing if you want to see more content like this. Shout outs to Priddy Ugly. This is definitely one for the books. Salute.